no doubt you would agree, Jared, that the economy and the virus path are very closely linked. It's hard for me to see how a Joe Biden presidency, though, would approach the virus differently. What exactly do you guys have? What would you have planned that would result in different outcomes when it comes to mortality and economics?
Yeah, no, that's pretty easy for me to see because the vice president has articulated in quite extensive writings on the website the plan that Eamon was just referring to. It's not just a few bullet points. It's actually a very deeply thought through proposal involving much more coordination from the top down. Instead of Trump's argument to the states, good luck, you're on your own, it is what it is, not only would President Biden get involved in the negotiations that Trump is now completely ignoring, if not undermining, but he would make sure that the testing and tracing and PPEs and safe reopenings were something that were centralized, coming from D.C., filtered through scientists, epidemiologists, down to the level of governors, mayors, and folks who are just trying to get back to their lives.
I guess the PPE issue is largely, being dealt with. We haven't really heard of shortages at hospitals, and the governors have figured out a way to get the PPE. Testing is also being dealt with by the private sector. We're getting new tests approved all the time. So I guess I'm just trying to see what would be different in terms of the outcome.
Well, I think the outcome has been, kind of speaks for itself. And we have about 4% of the global population, over 20% of global deaths. By the way, you mentioned a couple of factors that are in progress. I think the biggest concern is that what looks okay today doesn't look okay tomorrow. So, for example, the federal government should have been preparing for vaccine distribution starting weeks ago, if not months ago. That has to be done prior to a vaccine being approved. And I don't see that happening anywhere. And so kind of the extent of the chaos, the extent to which the Trump response has been just so scattershot and so ill-advised from the health community, I think that undermines and has undermined the progress thus far.
Jared, it's David. Earlier we had Gary Cohn on the show. He ended his interview by saying he wasn't sure he was going to vote for and that the deficit was a big issue for him. Sarah made the point that we don't hear much from either camp on that. Where does Biden stand in terms of spending right now and concern perhaps about what is a widening deficit, given, of course, all the money that's been spent so far to try to get us out of the difficulties as a result of the pandemic, not to mention the corporate tax cuts that already created significant deficits?
Right. So I would say the Biden economic plan has three parts. Virus control, which, as I've argued, I think has been sorely missing and is closely linked to getting a robust recovery on track. Part two, and this is most germane to your question, is building a bridge to the other side of this crisis. Congress has dropped the ball, and the absence of leadership from President Trump is really conspicuous in this space. And then three is the Building Back Better agenda. Now, number three, those initiatives which are permanent are paid for carefully in a very progressive tax agenda from the Biden campaign, which I'm happy to discuss. But it's part two, getting back to the business of relief. State and local governments are still really hurting, laying people off actively. You've got evictions, you've got hunger, you've got the expiration of enhanced unemployment benefits. All of this is hurting people, communities, and the macroeconomy. And so there is considerable fiscal space to act in that regard.